This video was made possible by our generous supporters on Patreon. Check out patreon.com/NWR for all the details. So you just bought a brand new Switch OLED model and you're trying to find some games to take advantage of that fancy new screen. While any game with bright colors or lots of contrast ought to look particularly good on the system, we went ahead and put together a list of 5 of our favorites. 3 of these are well-known first-party titles that I suspect most of you have at least one of. And the other 2 are slightly more obscure indie titles that you may not have played before, but that are definitely worth checking out. Of course, before we begin, it is worth noting that filming an OLED screen doesn't exactly convey an accurate picture, but it's the closest we can really get without seeing it in person. So keep in mind that anytime you notice a visible grid on the image, that's an artifact of the camera that's recording and not actually visible to the human eye, as is the slight blue tint. But with that, let's get started. I'm John Reardon, you're watching NWR TV, and these are 5 games that look incredible on the Switch OLED model. Let's start simple. There's a reason the OLED model launched alongside Metroid Dread, and that's because it also happens to be one of the best ways to show off the system. Dread balances bright, blown-out colors against deep darkness in a way that few games can. One of the advantages of an OLED screen is that when something is black, it is simply not illuminated, rather than being sort of a glowing black like you would see on other screens, like the original Switch, for example. For a game like Metroid Dread, this means that every area is bordered in absolute darkness. It's extremely impactful. Not to mention that when running in handheld mode, Metroid Dread nails the system's native 720p, making it look uncompromisingly sharp and vibrant on that new screen. This is one of those games that honestly might look better running in handheld on the OLED model than it does running on any TV, thanks to the fantastic screen and native resolution. Next up, our first indie pick is Rebel Galaxy Outlaw. If you've watched my videos before, you may have already heard me talk about this game. Rebel Galaxy Outlaw is a fantastic open-world space RPG that has incredible art design. Being heavily influenced by early 90s space sims like Wing Commander, Rebel Galaxy Outlaw turns in the traditional metal grays of space exploration for bright, beautiful colors across every element of its visual design. Even the stars themselves are a bright blue, and streak spectacularly across the screen anytime the camera moves. The OLED model highlights all of this, and the true blacks of deep space provided by the new screen actually increase visibility on distant ships. I feel like I say this every chance I get, but if you haven't played Rebel Galaxy Outlaw, especially if you have a Switch OLED model, give it a try. You will not regret it. Next, an oldie but a goodie, the game I suspect the most of you own, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. It's easily one of the best looking games on the system. And this may sound overdramatic, but playing this game on the OLED model is, in a word, transformative. I've yet to find another game on Switch that conveys the full bright color range of the OLED model quite like Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. Cheep Cheep Beach is easily my favorite example of this, where it honestly feels like I'm playing an entirely different version of the game. Obviously, it's very difficult to show simply by recording the screen, but like I said, based on sales numbers, most of you own this game. Give it a go on the OLED and you'll understand what I mean. It feels like you're seeing color for the first time. Our second indie pick might be the one the fewest of you have heard of. Grid Retroenhanced is a Tron-inspired semi-procedural rail shooter with a fantastic electronic soundtrack and ever-evolving neon visuals. I've wanted to talk about this game for a while because I think it's great, but I almost never hear it mentioned. The entire game sees the world forming in front of you as a sort of electric storm rages in the background, like some sort of 1980s computer's fever dream. Colors are constantly shifting, with new light sources illuminating the screen. It really shows off the range of brightness from pitch black to bright white, better than most other games on this list. It's also just a great little rail shooter that features both an arcade and endless mode, along with online leaderboards. Finally, we have a Nintendo-published Switch game that seems to have shifted out of public consciousness, but I think could find new life on the Switch OLED model. Astral Chain revels in its neon cyberpunk aesthetic, and that's definitely to its credit when it comes to the OLED. Like Metroid Dread, it's one of those games that, thanks to hitting native resolution, actually looks better on the Switch OLED model than it does on most TVs. This is a game that really takes advantage of excellent black levels, adding great definition to things that are mostly black versus not quite black that are easily lost on a more traditional screen. It also makes use of a lot of bright particle effects that seem custom built for this new screen. Enemies often explode in a shower of sparks that just look incredibly vibrant on the OLED screen. If you skipped Astral Chain at launch or just haven't played it since, this is a great excuse to return to this fantastic Switch exclusive. So those are 5 of our picks, but what have you been enjoying playing on the Switch OLED model, or your SWOLED, or your SwitchOLED, or whatever you personally call it? Give us your picks in the comments, and if you enjoyed this video, give it a like and consider subscribing to Nintendo World Report TV. You can find a whole lot more at NintendoWorldReport.com, and if you want to chat with us about this, or anything else Nintendo related, join our Discord. There's a link in the description. Once again, I'm John Reardon, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time. This video is made possible by our generous supporters on Patreon. Did you know that Nintendo World Report is funded directly by fans like you? When you support Nintendo World Report on Patreon, you get immediate access to multiple exclusive podcasts every month, exclusive Discord channels, an early look at select content, and more, all for as little as $1 a month. Check out patreon.com/NWR for all the details.